morning, good afternoon, good evening. Zanu PF started this ED 2030 soon after the 2023 elections. And I've explained on this platform that the reason why that was thrown in was because both SADC and the AU had condemned Zimbabwe's 2023 elections as flawed and illegal. And Mnangagwa himself is on record dismissing the SADC and the AU reports with the usual contempt. This is him talking soon after the election, the 2023 elections, and dismissing the SADC and the AU report.
Vakatuka Zanu-PF kana ndonyanyisa kufara zvakanaka ukavona vavengi vakwashi kurumbidza nekuchikanganisa ukavona vachiti Zanu-PF yakaipa farai because you are doing correct things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelections anafamba zvakanaka ndezvavo.
To dismiss the SADC and the AU election observer team's reports as Antaurash Stamsoro, they're talking nonsense, I think was totally unacceptable. SADC and the AU as organizations, all members of that organization have agreed that if it's elections in your country, we will have a delegation from SADC or the AU to observe your elections. And in this particular case, they will give their report on how the elections were conducted. And SADC's report was categoric. Zimbabwe's elections failed to meet Zimbabwe's own constitution, electoral laws, and failed to meet SADC's own principles and guidelines on the governance of democratic elections. They were very categorical on that point. And instead of accepting that and looking into it with the seriousness and respect it demanded, Mnangagwa goes ahead and saying, dismisses it with contempt, underlines the kind of government we have in Harare. That was the underlying reason why Mnangagwa threw in this issue that he wants to extend his stay in office beyond even the 2028 elections. He knew, could he throw that bone, many people will lose sight of what SADC and the AU had said regarding the 2023 elections and start chasing that issue. And that is exactly what happened. And ever since, Zanu PF has kept that on the national agenda. The party at this conference in Bulawayo in 2024, and they endorsed the Mnangagwa 2030 agenda. And then they had their party conference in October this year, a few weeks ago, and they reinstated that resolution. Meanwhile, to confuse the situation further, to mud the waters, Mnangagwa has insisted that he is a constitutionalist. He's not going to stay beyond the stipulated 2-term limit. And yet he claims, oh, but I cannot tell my people whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. So here is a situation where since that conference, the party spokesperson, Chris Mutsvangwa, is trying to shed some light on that very issue. And may I say, is only muddying the waters. Let's just listen to what he had to say.
Main events since the Congress and the direction which the party has taken since that Congress, particularly in the economic and business field, which is the main purpose of ZANU-PF to the people of Zimbabwe. I want to say that we had our resolution number 1 at the party Congress conference in Bulawayo, and it says that the president should remain as president of ZANU-PF until 2030. There has been a lot of flake coming out of, and some noises coming up about this resolution, because it is the unanimous resolution of the party membership, and nobody during that party conference challenged that resolution. So it was adopted unanimously by the party membership. So we expect that anybody who is a party member and is a follower of ZANU-PF will comply with the resolutions of the party as expounded by the majority. Of course, the president has said that he will not go beyond 2028. That is the position of the president. And it's his right as the leader to say I can continue or not to continue. That is it may. The date 28 remains on the calendar of God. It is not being removed. So a lot of the issues about where the party will be decided by 2028. And we are also going for a conference, a congress of the party, which comes after every 5 years. It's coming in 2027. So the decision of the president will then determine which way we are going to be proceeding as a party. But the position of the party is clear in their preference. What is amiss is for anyone within the party to say that because the president said we are not going beyond 2028, therefore I declare myself a candidate for succession before that particular date. If you are doing that, you are going against the spirit of the resolution of the majority of the party at the party conference in Mutare. You are declaring yourself a candidate ahead of the party itself having announced the availability of a vacant.
Well, we can't. Ben, is that any clearer to you now?
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. I mean, ZANU-PF, through this bone, so that, like you said, to get away, or get our thoughts away from rigging of elections, the 2023, and trying to figure out how to, to fix 2028. And they have thrown this bone and they keep on recycling it, boiling it, and throwing it all over again to try and attract the attention. And it's working. I mean, here is, Chris trying to clear up the air by saying, this is something, that as a party we agreed upon, that President Mnangagwa will be the party president until 2030. So that there is trying to clear up. It's him to be the president of Zanu PF. And then there's nothing wrong with that if they agreed on that. But a few days before that, or a few days after, it's going to be something totally different when somebody else comes in. So I agree with you. It's stirring, up the mud. We will, if we are to dwell on this whole 2030, or continue to dwell with this ED 2030, we are not going to go anywhere except back and forth, back and forth. They say something, they come back and clear it, only to say the same, the other thing again. So it's just going to be a back and forth until we get to 2028, where they will actually then say, okay, then let's go for the elections. And guess what? Zanu PF is going to rig those elections and win, because we have not addressed the primary problem. We have spent a good 5 years since 2023. We're already in 2025, end of it. We have not addressed the problem of rigged elections. What we have been doing is playing hide and seek with Zanu PF.
Well, I've got to agree with that. I think the most important thing here is that what Mnangagwa is doing is creating confusion within his own party. Those particularly in the camp other than his camp. Because at the present moment, what resolution number 1 has done is say to the opposing camp, you cannot bring up the issue of you are interested in succeeding Mnangagwa, because we are not talking of succession until the conference in 2027. They have a distinction. They hold their party congress every 5 years. And it is at the party congress that succession is discussed. In between, they have the whole what they call conferences. And during a conference, succession is not discussed. And this has put off the other side, who may want to succeed Mnangagwa. They cannot push their candidate forward, because they say, no, it's not, we're not talking of succession. And yet, Mnangagwa's camp have pushed that very issue. Resolution number 1 is about Mnangagwa should continue beyond 2028. That is a succession issue. His camp is allowed to push it. In fact, it was, as stated, resolution number 1, it was the first resolution that the conference met. So this is a situation with Zanu PF. This is an undemocratic party. But Nonetheless, we can put aside what the party does internally. What it does nationally is of even greater interest to every thinking Zimbabwean out there. In this particular case, this is why what SADC and the AU said about 2023 elections is important. The 2023 elections were not free, fair, and credible. In other words, this ZANU-PF regime is illegitimate. And that is what we should be discussing. But by throwing this ED 2030, unfortunately, many Zimbabweans out there took their eyes off the ball. The issue of what SADC had said, the consequences of the fact that the 2023 elections were not free, fair, and credible were forgotten, which is wrong. We should not have forgotten that 2023 elections were not free, fair, and credible. In fact, in my view, this should have been the number one issue in Zimbabwe to this day. Because the country has been independent now for 45 years. And in those 45 years, we have yet to hold free, fair, and credible elections. This is a serious problem. How is it possible that 45 years after independence, in this day and age, we still cannot hold free, fair, and credible elections? Much more so, we should be focusing on, right, we must focus on this issue. We must put an end to this madness. If we don't, come 2028, we'll be talking of 48 years after independence and we still can't hold free, fair, and credible elections. The truth of the matter is, without implementing reforms, that is exactly what is going to happen.
It is clear, I've always said this, ZANU-PF does not have a succession plan. Since from day one, they never had that succession plan. This is why you find when there was that Cholocho meeting, a lot of heads rolled and people, were fired and so forth and chased away. They don't want to talk about the next, the life after tomorrow, after the other guy. This is why you find the only time where they actually had to change leadership, it had to be a military coup. That's not democratic. You dare not speak up if you are in ZANU-PF about the succession, who comes next. And unfortunately, we have found that even in our opposition, this is exactly what happened. And the opposition leaders have taken to this ZANU-PF infighting, succession battles and everything. They've taken it, as number one priority. And they have forgotten that we are coming off rigged elections in 2023 and past years. And it is unfortunate that you're finding everybody is holding meetings, and now it's gone to the Constitutional Court to say, the Constitution is under threat because of ED 2030. But we know there is a situation of rigged elections, and SADC AU stated that our elections are illegal. They do not even measure up to our constitution. But guess what? Those same opposition leaders are not talking about it. they are not talking about the same infringements that are happening on the constitution when it comes to elections. Why? Because they themselves are very much willing participants, even in flawed elections. Because at the end of the day, there's something that they stand to gain. And we can give examples, like for MPs, they get housing loans, they get cars, they get stands, and so forth. So they really do not want to stop, elections from happening, no matter how flawed. They would rather participate in flawed elections than not to have elections at all, because that would mean missing out on the gravy train. It's just that simple. They are only fighting 2030 because it takes away the opportunity to get back on the train at 2028. That's it. We can fool ourselves and say 2030 is more important. 2030 is not even important as long as we fix 2028. That's it. So I really don't understand sometimes our thinking, and where are we, what do we stand to achieve by stopping 2030 only to have 2028 rigged? I think we'll be worse off.
Well, I'd like to explain an important point here. When SADC and the AU election observers condemned Zimbabwe's 2023 elections as flawed and illegal, they could not go the extra mile and deny Zanu PF legitimacy because the opposition had participated in those flawed elections. The people of Zimbabwe have to understand that as much as SADC would have wanted to step in, if 2 million, and we're talking of 2 million out of registered voters, 5 million, decided that they would participate in the flawed elections. And this is just from the opposition alone. Zanu PF says they've got 2 million as well. So altogether, you're looking at a situation here where over 4 million people, 4.5 million people out of 5 million registered voters decided to participate in the flawed elections. It's not for SADC or the AU to say, well, still we will not recognize that. Because you, the people, have got to understand that if you participate, and in this case here, they participated because they believed Chamisa's lie that he had plugged the vote rigging loopholes and Triple C was going to win big. If you participate and then lose, you cannot expect SADC to still step in and say, so we'll deny the process, the regime that emerges legitimacy. You have decided to participate knowing that the process is flawed. You've got to take the consequences of that. The key point here is that we have got to educate these Chamisa Chete Brigade members that participating is not in the national interest. You cannot be easily conned into believing that Chamisa is going to win when you have got a flawed process. SADC and the AU have confirmed that the process is flawed. Indeed, even when SADC's report and the AU report came out condemning the election process, CCC members who had stood in those elections and had won some seats, notably Advocate Fazai Mahere, David Coulthard, and many others, they went ahead and took up their seats, endorsing the process. SADC was helpless. You cannot participate in a process in your millions, and then when you don't get the result, expect SADC to step in. No, it doesn't work that way. We can stop ZANU-PF getting legitimacy in 2028 if we stop the millions of so-called Chamisa Chete Chete Brigade members participating. So the message, the task is on us. Forget this ED 2030. It's a distraction. Mnangagwa at the end of the day may turn around and say, no, I'm a constitutionalist, I'm not participating. And if we've spent the next 3 years fighting over that one, it will be to no avail. Some of the opposition members, in fact, have already submitted a court challenge of that. What exactly they are challenging? One has got to say, it beggars belief. Are you challenging that a party cannot make a resolution on this issue or any issue? It violates the Constitution. Yeah, it is a party resolution. And the individual concerned is the one who is saying, I'm a constitutionalist, I'm not interested in taking it up. So what is it exactly you are challenging? This is just a time-wasting opportunity. The most important thing we should be focusing on is making sure we educate the opposition supporters and make sure they do not make the mistake of participating in 2028. That is where the real challenge is. Because if they are dragged along, even at the pretext that they're fighting to stop ED, and at the end of the day, ED says, I wasn't going to take part anyway. At that point, it will be too late to educate those same people not to participate in 2028. And if they participate with the same numbers in their millions, will have given ZANU-PF legitimacy. And thus perpetuate the dictatorship. This cannot be overemphasized. Nonetheless, we have to sort this one out. I would just like to play a bit of that clip again from Mutsvangwa, then we'll give our concluding remarks.
Pachuru chemusha pachirui andibviri I'm a number one economist, this and this. No. Respect the man who has created the economic trail, the value chain of where you are as an economist. Kumirira ma-treasury bills ave ku-reserve bank and liquidating them, which you can only do at the express authority of the central bank governor and the president, because the economy is doing, does not make you an economist par excellence who can claim to be superior to the one who has created the value chain all the way kubvira kumunda. President vabvira kumunda. Ndakutaura kuti there was no currency. He has brought back the currency. I told you that Terry Mafojika, I was involved with him in restoring the tobacco industry. It had collapsed to 20,000 tons in 2004 when I was ambassador to China. I worked with President Mnangagwa We brought contract farming back and funding from China. Now we're at 354 million kilograms, 354,000 tons. Zvaitwa napresident izvozvo ndipresident wazviita. President ndivozve vakati goridhe icherwe nevana vadiki. I was in cabinet when this decision was made in 2016. I had just got into cabinet. It was a resolution of the war veterans in Masvingo kuti vana ngavachere goridhe. They were digging 3 tons illegally vachitananiswa negondo harishai in 2016. They were legalized. In 2018, the president said the price of gold in Dubai is the same as in Zimbabwe. So there was no more smuggling. Anna Radlander, they used to trade.
The Virgin Media Black.
Well, we can stop it right there. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks there?
In closing, I would want to say, I believe the opposition stopped fighting for reforms a long, long time ago. In the early 2000s, the moment they tasted, the bribes and the tokens that come with power, they put all, mention of reforms onto the side. It became a secondary issue. This is why you found out that even when they had the best opportunity during the GNU, they never even spoke about it. In fact, they are the ones that actually, told Mugabe that SADC was bothering them to implement reforms. Now here we have a situation where they are taking up arms and they are uniting to fight against ED 2030. A fight that really does not make any sense right now. A fight you cannot stop now because, as you heard Chris Mutsvangwa say, it is a party resolution. They want ED to be Zanu PF president by 2030. So this is just Zanu PF infighting. And the opposition are so much engaged in this. And one has to ask if there is going to be no 2030 and we have to go into 2028 elections, as illegal and flawed as it is, what outcome do we expect? It's like a mouse that is waiting for a fight between a black mamba and a python to say whoever wins will be a salvation to it. And that is not possible. It will be dinner. So whoever comes out of the succession battle within ZANU PF is not going to do anything except to devour us. So for me, my disappointment really is with this here so-called opposition, who seem to be so much engaged in fighting 2030, yet 2028, 2023 elections are so flawed and illegal, but they are willing to continue to participate. And then after that, pretend to cry with us to say our elections are rigged, while at least they are putting on suits to go into parliament, to go into different portfolios. We need to wake up and smell the coffee. We are being used here. Thank you.
My last remark is regarding that last bit. The clip actually was directed at Kuda Takwirei, and is being told there that the real economist is Mnangagwa, and he should not present himself as the real economist. Many people believe that Takwirei is the heir the heir apparent, the crown prince, as far as the Mnangagwa faction is concerned. So this is just meant to create even more confusion, to create the impression that there is factional fighting within ZANU-PF. The two factions are Mnangagwa and Chiwenga. And then in the one faction, the Mnangagwa faction, there is also fighting. And anyone can throw their head in, etc., etc. This is typical of ZANU-PF. They would want to keep this issue going, alive, and get everybody utterly, totally confused. This is why at the beginning I said this interview by Chris Mutsvangwa is going to make this issue as clear as mud. They are just confusing their own members and the nation at large. We should not let ourselves be dragged into any of these ZANU-PF factional wars. We should focus on the issues that ZANU-PF has failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections ever since the country's independence in 1980. 2023, ZANU-PF did not win free, fair, and credible elections, as SADC and the AU election observers correctly noted. This is an illegitimate regime. Our number one focus should be to put an end to this madness of rigged elections. We are not going to do it because no reforms have been implemented. Our only fight and our only chance is to stop ZANU-PF getting away with another rigged election in 2028. And that can only be achieved if we can stop some of the opposition supporters participating in the flawed 2028 elections in the numbers we witnessed in the past. That message must be driven home, and is our only chance. It beggars belief that we have allowed this madness to continue. 45 years of rigged elections in this day and age. I think every Zimbabwean out there should be hanging their head in shame that we've allowed it to happen. And we must put an end to it. Thank you very much. I just wanted to remind everybody that Monday to Friday, we have this discussion from 6 p.m. UK time or 8 Zimbabwean time. And on Saturdays and Sundays, we have the same discussion, but this time we have got a link that allows the public to join in. And the link is being shown at the bottom of your screen there. The link does not change, so it's valid every week. Saturdays and Sundays, 6 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. Zimbabwean time. I hope you'll be able to join us one of these weekends. Thank you again to Ben and our administrator there. Have a good night.